Shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rakha, Quadash. Double honors to the elders and to the apostles of the millstone, and enough respect to the brothers that are pushing and spreading the gospel of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi to the four corners of the world. Now, through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, I just want to do a quick lesson on the book of Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, and Lord willing, this be edifying. So the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30, beginning with verse 1, it says, when all these blessings and curses I have said before you come on you, and you take them to heart wherever the Lord Yahweh, your God, disperses you among the nations, so in our time, and when you and your children return to the Lord Yahweh your God and obey him with all your heart and with all your soul, according to everything I command you today, then the Lord Yahweh your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all nations where he scattered you, right? And we know according to prophecy, right, when we moved forward in time from the time of the wilderness where Deuteronomy was given unto us, the Lord has revealed his mysteries and made it more detailed. And so we know that the time in which he will again bring us, right, he will gather us from the nations, is this time, right, when Esau is let loose for a short while. And that has happened as we know today as the Europeans, and how they set up a power nation known as America, Babylon, right, which is also Rome. And so we know that it's talking about today. But how have we been following the commandment that the Lord gave unto us perfectly? That's the question, because it seems to be the condition. It's just when all these blessings and curses, we've had the blessings, we've had the kingdom, we've also had the curses. Matter of fact, we're living the curses right now. I have set before you, come on you, and take them, right? And you take them to heart wherever the Lord Yahweh your God disperses you among the heathens. And when you and your children return to the Lord Yahweh your God and obey him with all your heart and with all your soul, according to everything I command you today, then the Lord Yahweh your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all nations where he scattered you. Okay, and so how has this been fulfilled? How have we, followed the commandment of the Lord? In other words, how have we appealed to the wrath of the Lord, to where now he decides he's going to begin that good work of turning back our captivity and gathering us and putting us back in the land? We have here in the book of Jeremiah, 33rd chapter, verse 7, it says, and I will cause the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel to return, and will build them as at the first. And I will cleanse them from their iniquity whereby they have sinned against me, and I will pardon all the iniquities whereby they have sinned and whereby they have transgressed against me. This has not happened, right? And it shall be to me a name of joy and a praise and an honor before all the nations of the earth, which shall hear all the good that I do unto them. And they shall fear and tremble for all the goodness and for all the prosperity that I procure unto it. Okay, this has not happened yet. So we know that the Lord said he will cleanse our iniquity. So it's not as though we were perfect, but our attempt to be righteous, at a certain point in time, it'll please the Lord, and he will count it as righteousness, to where he will cleanse our iniquity. But then again, what is that deciding factor? How do we know for sure we have crossed that, that requirement, right? Or we have achieved that objective? It's only through Yahawashi, right? The book of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 21, it says, and she shall bring forth a son, talking about Mary, and thou shalt call his name Yahawashi, right? So Mary shall give birth to Yahawashi, for he shall save his people from their sins. So he will be that deciding factor. If we've ever wondered, well, when is the Lord going to forgive us? When is he going to return our captivity? How do we know if, you know, our filthy garments has been accepted? Right? We need that definitive factor. And, as we read through the scriptures, you've had the book of Psalms, David, for example, Asaph. They all talk about Yahawashi being the man, the Son of Man. The book of Daniel, Yahawashi is always that deciding factor. Once he's on the scene, then we know for sure that the Lord has sent us a deliverer, and he will deliver us. So when Yahweh sent Yahawashi on the scene 2,000 years ago, he fulfilled, or he solidified that transition period by sacrificing himself on our behalf, right? That was the solution the Lord chose, right, for us. And so Romans, the 8th chapter, verse 11, it says, and if Yahawashi be in you, matter of fact, verse 9, Romans 8 and 9, but ye are not in the flesh, but in the spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of Hamashiach, he is none of his. And if Hamashiach be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the Spirit of him that raised up Yahawashi from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Yahawashi from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwell in you. Okay, because what? The Spirit is of righteousness. And so if we are to share the Spirit that quickened Yahawashi, then once Yahawashi passed on, once we receive that blessing, right, that, the blessing of the Spirit through Yahawashi, we know that we had been counted righteous, right? And so, when you go into the cross references, right, because we share the Spirit of Yahawashi, remember Paul said that Spirit is what? Of righteousness, right? And so because we share the Spirit of Yahawashi, right, Romans 6 and 4, therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Yahawashi was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. Because when you read the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter tells you, at Yahawashi's resurrection, he beheld the Son of Man brought to the Ancient of Days. And that was the moment all, dominion and glory was given unto him, right? For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. So we follow in the footsteps of Yahawashi, right? That is, in a sense, in a nutshell, being in the spirit of Yahawashi. Okay? So because Yahawashi is at the deciding factor, because he was able to cross over to that side, he accomplished what he did and secured our future, we only need to follow his path, right? Because what? The servant is not greater than the master. We have to do what Yahawashi did, right? Well, we're not going to be as perfect as him, but we can try our very best to live the life that he lived. The life of a prophet, the life of a teacher, the life of a righteous man, the life of an obedient man to the commandment of the Most High, the life of a man that was filled with love, okay? The life of a man who prayed, who was filled with, who prayed nonstop, always, right? The life of a man who was selfless. And so we try to live, right, or exhibit the spirit of Yahawashi in the sight of these nations. And if we uphold those ideals and that lifestyle, right, up until the day that, up until the end, then we become quickened with Yahawashi. right? And so, um, let's see. Right, even when we are dead in sin, he hath quickened us together with Hamashiach, right? So, Yahawashi is he's that deciding factor, right? We look to him, and we know for certain that Deuteronomy chapter 30, from verses 1 up until verse 4 is what is fulfilled, right? That's why when Yahawashi was reunited, when he resurrected, when he reunited with his disciples, they asked that question, right? Will you now give unto us the kingdom? Because they know, man, once Yahawashi resurrected from the dead and showed the body to the Father, they said, yes. Now the kingdom is certain. Yeah, you're going to give it to us now, But there are a series of events that must happen until that moment. That is why, anyone out there who, claims to be an Israelite, though he may use the name of the Father, if he rejects the Son, the name of the Son, Yahawashi, even if he says he accepts, but then he calls him by a different name, exalts a different name, there is no light in him. He's preaching unto a different gospel. And so, through Yahawashi, it says, even if you have been banished, Deuteronomy 30:4, even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heavens, from there the Lord Yahweh your God will gather you and bring you back. He will bring you to the land that belongeth to your ancestors, and you will take possession of it. He will make you more prosperous and numerous than your ancestors, right? Because in the kingdom of heaven, there's not going to be any death. We will live forever, and we will multiply, and we will be literally as the stars of the heaven. We will literally fill the cosmos, The Lord Yahweh your God will circumcise your hearts and the hearts of your descendants, so that you may love him with all your heart and with all your soul and live, showing you the love of the Heavenly Father, right? Because the condition of us receiving the kingdom is to be perfect and to follow the commandment and to obey with all our hearts and with all our soul. But we are sick, man. We are incapable of being perfect. We are made subject to vanity, to iniquity. And so he steps in and he willingly circumcises our hearts and the hearts of our descendants, right? It says the Lord your God will put these curses on your enemies who hate and persecute you, right? So these nations will know what it means to be underneath someone. They may know what it means to be underneath someone, but they don't know what it means to be underneath a righteous nation, right? The Lord will put these curses on them because they commit just as much iniquity, if not worse, than Jake. Hey, Ezra said it. He said, hey, these people they're more wicked than Jake. They go way off. So how come you're giving them all these kingdom, but Jake don't even have an inheritance? We don't have a portion. And that's because their recompense for that lawlessness will come on this side when the Lord gives us the power and these curses come upon us. Even before, we really receive the kingdom of heaven. These curses are already coming upon our enemies, right? They're fighting amongst each other, okay? So it says, these curses, right? You got these diseases, all kinds of things, and these great deaths. Matter of fact, I take it back. You will have nations invading other nations. They will know what it means to pay for their iniquity. Okay. Um, it says, you will again obey the Lord Yahweh and follow all his commandments I am giving you today. Then the Lord Yahweh your God will make you most prosperous in all the work of your hands, and in the fruit of your womb, the young of your livestock and crops of your land. The Lord will again delight in you and make you prosperous, just as he delighted in your ancestors. If you obey the Lord Yahweh your God and keep his commandments and decrees that are written in this book of the law, and turn to the Lord Yahweh your God with all your heart and with all your soul. And of course we know that, when you see the word the law, if it's written in the Torah, yeah, it's understandable that it was simply meaning the Torah, because that's what they had up to that point. But as time goes on, the law pretty much came to represent the entire scriptures. That's when when Yahawashi quoted the book of Psalms, and when he said, "Isn't it written in the law that ye are gods?" He quoted the book of Psalms, but he said the law, right? So the law really is not talking about the Torah. It's talking about the scriptures. The entire scriptures, man. Even the book of the prophets, right? Psalms, okay? The gospel, all the words that are inspired, all the words of the Lord that it's given unto us, these are law, because we must live by them. If you just live life based on the Torah, there are certain things in the book of Proverbs, for example, that you ought to understand. That you may know that the Torah may tell you what's to come at the end, but you have to move beyond the Torah to understand the details of prophecy. If you want to watch, if you only read the Torah, how will you know if the Son of Man has already been on the scene? How will you know if it's been fulfilled? So the entire scriptures is our law. We live by it. Okay? And so we're looking forward to the Lord restoring our fortunes, restoring the nation, gathering us from where he has, scattered us. So in closing, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem Rakha Kodash, Shalom Yahweh, Bahashem Yahshai, Brakatham, Toy Akim Sanakos, that are listening in truth and sincerity. May the blessing of blessing be upon the house. And until next time, Shalom.